It's a time for... You know what it is? Leave it in the comments! Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in this video we are going to take a close look at the Super Console X Pro Edition. They are using the same box like the previous model, but I can tell you it's really the Pro. So let's take a close look what's inside the box itself. Alright, so this is what we're going to get inside the box itself. It comes with a very cheap feel, 12 volt, let's say a 1 amp power adapter. Nothing really special. We're going to get a normal basic remote, and this is not an air remote because this thing has dual boot. And with the dual boot, I mean we can remove the SD card and it will boot up like an Android device, because in the end it's an Android device. But with the console we're going to take a close look at it later with a quick overview and ETA Prime moment. We're having here the toilet paper manual for the controllers, which is a basic explanation how to set it up. We're having here the deluxe toilet paper manual 4, here it comes. All the information about the software itself. And then we're having the really horrible USB 2.0. Yeah, let's say the USB hub that you don't want to use, don't recommend using that. And we're having an HDMI cable. And not to forget, we're going to get 2 controllers. And both controllers got an USB dongle that we need to connect with the Super Console X. But most important, they are just the fake cheap PlayStation controls like always. I must say, like the less shitty quality versions. And not to forget, man, these things can smell chemical like always. Okay, but let's take a close look at the system itself and let's talk about some technical stuff. Okay, so let's take a close look at the system itself. But before we're going to continue, pure satisfaction. But okay, so the system itself is just a basic Android box that is slapped into a new case, and it also says here the Super Console X Pro Edition, and here at the bottom we're having the model number, it also says X Pro. So the X Pro has some different specifications like compared with the previous one. So this is the normal one. We'll do a separate comparison side by side, but this is the Super Console X and the Pro. They keep making these freaking things, but let's do a quick overview what kind of specs and of course what are the connections. On the right side of the console we're going to get the 2 USB hubs for controller connection. If you want to have a 4-player configuration, sadly you need to use the shitty hub or get yourself a better one. And of course we're going to get here the sticker that will cover up the CF card. So if you want to remove it, I always recommend making backup of this thing if you're going to tinker with it. Otherwise, if you mess it up, you're screwed. At the back we're going to find an AV out port like the previous model, an Ethernet connection, HDMI. We're also having the input for the power supply, and we're having here the on and off switch. That is something that is not really common with these things, but most of the time these boxes don't have an on and off switch. Alright, so it's time for the ETA Prime moment and let's talk some specs. So the brand is Hank, type Super Console X Pro. The chipset is the S905X. It is a CPU, an ARM Cortex A53, that's basically in quad-core CPU that is running on 1.5 GHz. The GPU is a Mali 450 quad-core, RAM is 1GB, DDR3, onboard memory 8GB of eMMC, and it runs on EmuElec 3.9 for the retro part, and it also has the capabilities for dual boot for the Android version. But we're going to take a close look at it later in a different video. Alright, so let's talk about the menu itself. So EmuElec and the skin they are using is looking quite nice. The compatibility when it comes to emulators with EmuElec compared with the Pandora's box, we're having so much different stuff we can play now. So if you really like the old school stuff like Atari, these systems are all compatible with the EmuElec and the combination with the Super Console X Pro Edition. But take in consideration, even though having so many systems, it doesn't say it will run perfectly. I did notice when you're looking at some games, sometimes some games doesn't boot up or don't have a tiny picture or like this preview picture or movie. So the system is flawed in some ways, especially when it comes to performance. We have compatibility with N64, Naomi, Atomic Wave, PSP with the PPSSPP emulator, but you will see that not all of the games will run perfectly and some games still have some issues in the end. So that's something you need to take consideration. I do like it that we're having support for quite different systems. And what we're going to do, we're going to try out some different games. Take consideration on the second channel, I will upload more extended testing videos for this product. Nevertheless, so let's take a close look at the games and how are they running on the Super Console X Pro. What you will see is that the games, like the really old stuff, a lot of Chinese handhelds back in the day had a problem with. With the new Super Console X Pro, we have no problem and most of these games run just fine. But when you're going to play some more demanding games from the Atomic Wave and some other systems, the 1 GB RAM this device has is not enough. And you will see and hear a lot of stuttering and a lot of stuff that's not going to be a very pleasant experience when it comes to playing these old games.
Get ready, fight!
So N64 will always be at the moment a mixed bag, especially with its low-end TV boxes. But some games seems to be working just fine, like this game.
Ready, set, go! Checkpoint!
The battle for survival begins. Engage.
But running Sony PlayStation Portable on a low-end box like this is not a good thing. I can say that this game, where you can see here, works just fine and it doesn't have a lot of glitches. So it's more like a combination of compatibility with the games and not having enough power to emulate the games good enough. So two-dimensional games intend to run pretty good, but I did notice a lot of games have a lot of glitches, a lot of slowdowns. So in overall, the PSP is not a good experience when it comes to the Super Console X Pro. So with the next game, you can see the game runs pretty smooth on stable 30 FPS, but you can see a lot of glitching. One game is better than the other one, but somehow I don't have even having any background music. So it's a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. And I'm keep getting this error screen with PSP games. It's possible to fix, but I just wanted to show you that stuff like this seems to be happening with PSP. But okay, so the PlayStation 1 is a system that we can finally run on original native resolution on a cheap Android box like this, and even Bloody Roar 2 seems to be working just fine. Okay guys, so let's do a quick teardown. So the thing that we're going to do is removing the 4 screws over here at the bottom part with just a basic Phillips screwdriver. And these things are very easy to tear down, and especially if you're going to do this yourself. What I don't recommend is don't forget to remove the SD card. Over here, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to break the seal, and we just need to do it. And if you're going to remove the SD card, I'm always recommending make a backup, especially when you're going to update or do anything with it. So if you're going to mess up the SD card, you will have some big problem. But okay, so the screws have been loosened up. You can already lift it up, but first we're going to remove the seal, and we're going to remove the SD card. Man, I hate these freaking things. Ugh. Okay, so the casing itself is fully made of plastic, and these parts can all be removed. Sadly, there is no way for me for easy removing the cooling element or the heatsink, and that is a little bit of a bummer. I did know that ETA Prime with the previous model did use a heat gun, but I will not do this because we're already knowing what kind of specifications we're going to get. So in overall, we will also do a side-by-side comparison with the other version, so we can see what are the difference between the two main boards, or is it just basically the same layout with a different chip. It will be more like a cost-effective thing, and I completely understand they just want to make it cheap as possible, but sadly they only giving us one RAM chip, and we're going to need 2. And what you can see over here is that we're having the option for having a second RAM. So I hope with the revision of the Super Console X Pro, so let's say give the normal one 1 GB and the Pro version just give it 1 or maybe 2 GB more, so having more capabilities when it comes to running EmuElec 4.0 and having better performance with some emulators. So when you take a close look at the heatsink itself, if it's bigger and better than the first model, that is something we will find out in the comparison. But I wish we're having more ventilation and a bigger heatsink on this thing, because I can say that with a couple of hours of using and playing some games, it gets really hot. Okay, nevertheless, let's put this bad boy back together and let's talk about the final conclusion. What do I think of the Super Console X Pro? When you take a close look at the Super Console X Pro, in my opinion, it is nothing really pro about it, simply because the chipset is maybe a newer chipset, but there is not a big of an improvement. I will show some pros and cons what I think of the system itself, but if you're looking at like a standalone device, it's quite interesting to see this tiny box. The heat problem, I don't know how it's going to be when you're using it for a couple of years, but I wish they had more like a better cooling element, maybe an active fan or having some more ventilation in this tiny box. Alright, so let's talk about the controller itself to begin with. It's not the best controller I've played with, but not the worst either. So when you're looking at the compatibility with the EmuElec Box, it's just plug and play, it works out of the box. It has just still this smelly chemical feel and also smell to it, it's just really horrible. But the analog and D-pad are not that bad, and even when playing some fighting games I can get some moves out, and that is pretty damn awesome, because most of these controls are so bad that the D-pad is not working whatsoever. Okay guys, so this was my review about the Super Console X Pro Edition. If you have still some questions, you can always leave it in the comments. Check out my second channel where I'm going to do some more extended testing. And if you want to see a tutorial about something, I can drop it over there. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, become one of the Wicked family, and I will see you in the next video.